What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. We got Tim in Green Bay here to talk some Green Bay Packers tonight and also talk about this horrible officiating going on in the NFL today. So let's all act surprised. Tim, right off the bat, there you go. No more big Chiefs games. Did anyone happen to see the Xavier Worthy? Is Xavier Worthy, I think, that went to make that catch, and the ball, he literally has one hand on it. The ball bounces off the ground, and they counted a catch. Pretty wild. Let's all act shocked. I just put a tweet out. Let's all act surprised that went the Chiefs' way, okay? But anyway, here we are. The Eagles game was very interesting as well. As if you're on Twitter, you've seen the calls. No big surprise, right? Seemed like every single questionable call went the Eagles' way. And as Jacob pointed out, I got to say, Jacob pointed out last year, as soon as they announced the logo for this year's Super Bowl, what was it? Green and red, right? And here we go. Calls all year long. It's like they don't even try to put it to bed anymore. It's almost like they're pressing into it. But anyway, how we doing tonight, gents?
Doing all right. Be better if the game that we love wasn't, professional wrestling, but here we are.
And what's crazy is it's not even like some fans think that. I mean, it is a large majority of the fans now. Am I wrong feeling that way? I mean, is it just me hating these two teams so much? Or it really feels like if you go to Twitter, it's literally 8-2 that 8 fans are going, this is ridiculous how obvious it is. And there's 2 that are, Chiefs fans or Eagles fans, right? So anyway. J. Cole in the chat, bro, I can't believe this man be the first year I don't watch the Super Bowl. There's a lot of people saying that right now too. It does feel very, very weird, no doubt. Josh Martin says, can we get an in-depth on Corey Thornton, cornerback out of Louisville? I'm going to keep this marked. Let's don't unmark it. We'll come back to it in a second. Venom Slash, I didn't know that the refs could award the team the ball and a score if the behavior continues in the Washington game. Did you guys see that call?
That was
I've been watching football a long time. I have never heard an official come on the mic and go, if the other team continues to commit this penalty, we can let the other team score. It's like,
but what was more interesting is that it wasn't like Louvet, or I think it was Louvet, right? Louvet. He wasn't just trying to jump, like they were hard counting him as well. It wasn't just the fact that he was just like, I'm going to stop this game. Mm-hmm. They were doing the hard count. And at the point where I believe after like a third, because it happened way too many times, but it was at the point though, you get to it is like, oh, are we going to give him the 1-inch line or the 3/4 inch line? And then the 1/2 inch line. It's like at that point, honestly, I think Louvet had a great concept. He's like, I'm going to keep doing this until literally you make me not do this. Because at that point, it's a guaranteed score, right? For Philly, the tush push is just when it's at the 1 foot line, it's unstoppable. When it's at the 3 yard line, it's pretty much unstoppable. When it's at the centimeter line, I'm pretty sure that's a go ahead cemented in as a touchdown.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's interesting, man. Again, it's not just one fan base. It's not 3 fan bases. It's 30. It's really 30 fan bases pointing out that these two teams have gotten calls all freaking year long. It's funny. Wes Hawkwood had quote tweeted our account over on X, and of course, the first comment was a random. I can't remember who it was. Somebody who listened to the show said, "All right, I'm gonna need that Brad Allen picture, that one of him morphing into the dude from the Mad magazine or whatever." So we had that on tap. We got that saved for later dates for sure. Anthony Nofke in the chat says Clete Blakeman doing Clete Blakeman things. Yeah, probably just following orders, to be honest with you. But anyway, all right, let's get back to Josh Martin's chat. Let's talk some Packers, guys. Let's try not to be depressed over the fact that this is what the playoffs have turned into.
It'll be fun watching them try and figure out what the hell to do in the Super Bowl, though.
Mm-hmm.
Philly and Kansas City. I mean, who do you rig it for now? You got what you wanted. Who's going to get the dub?
Right. It's interesting, man. I never thought I would be that football fan that's even talking about that type of stuff. But
me neither.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah, man.
Is that when I started with this podcast and with the podcast network, that information or that thought bled into my brain from time to time, and it was people like Ryan and Clayton and Tim and honestly, not really Emilio, because you guys know how he is, but I trusted people, you know what I mean, that are smarter than I in the football era, obviously, and just in that generation of like people you look up to. They're like, yeah, he's done the homework, he knows what it is. Like I trust what his opinion is, and now I'm at the point where Clayton's saying this could be some stuff. Everybody on, like you said, 11 out of like 12 fans that watch this are just like, no, that doesn't. That doesn't. When we go to audit this game, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And we talk about a society that's right now that's trying to get an audit on things and see if things work efficiently. Right now, dude, if you're grading how the NFL, which is again a multi-billion-dollar industry, if we're grading their performance and how they regulate their industry, I would give them a flat F-. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah. The other one too was the fumble, right? Or was it? Yeah, it was a fumble.
Yeah.
In the Eagles game, and so the ball gets fumbled. The Eagles players try to jump on it, right? Washington's guy comes into the scrum, so you see like 4 guys go down the ground, right? And they're scrumming for it, just like you guys remember the Keyshawn Nixon play, right? So they're scrumming for it, and all of a sudden, as they're scrumming, and the officials are trying to pull players off, there's literally, you can watch the video, the official is trying to pull players off, and the ball squirts right past his leg out of the pile, and a Washington Commander offensive lineman scoops it up and grabs it. And the official is digging in the pile where the ball isn't even at and signals, yeah. And I'm going, what? Wait. And then you go back 2 weeks ago, and what happened? Keyshawn Nixon is laying on the ground on his back with 2 arms on the ball. And they allowed an Eagle to come in and rip the ball out while he's laying on the ground. But they're saying, no, that the ball came out. But in this case, where they didn't even have eyes on a player having full possession, like Keyshawn Nixon with 2 arms on the ball, right? It's just wild. And Jacob, the reason I bring that up again, the comment you just made, I'm a person that I need evidence. I need proof of something, or else I'm always going to say, I can't say definitively. There's been 0 proof this year to prove that theory wrong. If anything, there's been tenfold the evidence of, damn, I see what these opposing fans are saying. I get it now, right? It's just like the other play today where the Philadelphia Eagle guy, right, it was A.J. Brown and the Washington Commander get locked up at the goal line. First of all, A.J. Brown punches him in the chin, hands to the face, right? We've seen that a couple weeks ago, if you'll remember that. Hands to the face. When they start the fight, the Washington Commander guy literally just hugs him, puts his arms around him to keep him from punching him. And A.J. Brown grabs him by the face mask, rips his helmet off, and throws it on the ground. And they throw a personal foul on the Commanders because the guy was hugging him. It's like,
it should have been offsetting. There should have been a flag on each player on that play.
Best case.
Yeah. But that's if you're, objectively trying to call this game objectively, not if you're trying to, control outcomes, which, like you said, Clayton, I don't think there's any reason to believe they're even trying to be objective anymore. It's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm. Can I quick post a theory? Or I'm sorry. Tool for this says, on the first Luvu offside, the ref threw the flag before he could even process what was even happening. When Luvu went and did it like 3 or 4 times after, do you think that was him being like, I know what's happening, I don't give a crap, I'm doing this, like I'm going, and honestly, that is the type of mentality what Luvu did at the end of that game, that was like midway through the third when he started doing that stuff, wasn't it? Like where he was like, I'm changing the outcome of the game. It seems like it's out. That is what I want. When I watch a Packers team start losing, I want a guy like Luvu to go in there and be like, no, I'm going to do literally anything. If I get a penalty, I don't care, because there's nothing that I can't do right now that's going to make us lose worse. You know what I'm saying? Like I can at least do more than what I'm doing, which is just sitting here and waiting for the play. I'm going to attack it. I'm going to try Polamalu human meat missile myself in that quarterback. If it wasn't for the fact that I've never seen that ever, where it's like, if you don't quit doing that, we're going to give the other team points.
Like, I'm telling you, I'm sure it's buried in the rule book somewhere. My point is, once again, I always come back to, have I ever seen that before? No. I've been watching this game for over 30 years. and I've never seen that. So that's a red flag to me. When something happens for the first time ever, that's sorry. You know, as the guy who found the missing lady there several years ago said, dead giveaway. Dead giveaway. Because it's just, I don't know, man. It's wild. And here's the thing that I always combat the fans that are defending it with, like the Chiefs fans, the Eagles fans. Show me the multiple plays that went against the Eagles or the Chiefs. And that's when they shut up. They get quiet. You're just whining and they move on because they cannot come up with it. It's every game. So it's just, anyway, it sucks. I wish it was something that, you know, we can just change the subject, not talk about it. That's cool. We could pretend, we could bury our head in the sand and pretend like it ain't a thing. But until people complain enough, or as Drew said in the chat, until you stop watching, nothing's going to change. Right. That's why I'm not going to stop watching football. I love football. But I'm going to make sure that my voice is heard rather than just sitting back going, oh, you're going to play the game. Both teams.
Honestly, like Clay, what else though? They got us by the, you know what, the nectarines. You know what I mean?
What you can do is post the visual evidence and embarrass the hell out of them. Because right now, whether they want to admit it or not, they're embarrassed because it happens every week. I mean, when my crappy little account is trending every week because of this, you know it's getting noticed. I'm expecting the NFL to call any day now and be like, hey, bus, stop tweeting about the NFL. Because like we've got two of them out there that's got 600,000-700,000 views today. And it's just simply, here's the evidence. Here's the video. I'm not saying take my word for it. Here, you judge it. Here it is, right? So anyway, let's get back to this. Well, we got a couple marked here. Josh Martin, NFL is legally labeled as an entertainment, not a sport, so it can legally be scripted. Some people believe that. There may be some truth to it, Josh. Again, it's been like that for a long time, and it's never been an issue. All of a sudden, bang, it hits. So welcome to 2025, right? Anthony Nofke, I hate blaming refs for anything whatsoever, but when it's so obvious, it's hard not to wonder. Again, and my stance is always, if you're not saying anything, you have no right to complain. You know, if you're just going to kind of sit back and go, I ain't going to be the one to complain about the refs, then don't be upset when it screws your team, because there's a lot of teams getting screwed right now, about 30 others. Anyway, back to Josh Martin here. He asked about Corey Thornton, I think is who he meant, cornerback out of Louisville. We've got him the 174 spot on our big board. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of information to go in. He was not on the PFF big board. He was 223rd in the consensus big board. And then his grade this year, he was the 51st graded cornerback in the entire league. So we still got some more information to put in on Corey Thornton, but looks like a pretty solid prospect here. When I say solid, you know, sitting around the 174 spot, seeing that the consensus big board has him at 223, we have him a little bit higher, obviously. So that's where he sits on our board there, Josh Martin. Let's do this, man. Let's switch gears here, and I'm going to go to my Twitter. I'm not going to put it on the screen, okay, but I want to read off some information. I want to give a shout out to a Twitter account, Easton Butler, at Easton__Butler. Make sure you're following him. He's got inside information with the Packers all the time. I noticed during training camp, he's a very reliable source, things like that. Make sure you're following his account. He's keeping a tracker going of players that the Packers have visited with. So I thought what we do here, guys, is just go ahead and take a look at some of these players. I'm going to read them off, and then we'll find them on the big board. How's that sound? Or actually, what I can do is, how about I drop the big board down, put my Twitter account up, and then we'll just go off of that. That'd probably be a little more interactive for everyone, so they're just not staring at my spreadsheet here. But although I did get rave reviews earlier from us sharing the board, which I'm glad you guys and gals are liking that, because we're
ready to go.
Hey, that's honestly like I've been watching a few other podcasts, dude. We've got a really good board. Props to Emilio, obviously. Props to you, Clayton, and props to the listeners, because we've fine-tuned this now for, like, isn't it 3 years now?
Yeah, 3 years.
Crazy?
3rd year. Yep.
Dude, it's very efficient right now, guys. This is I'm telling you, you could make some bets. Not that I want you to make bets. I'm just saying, if you were to
walk into a casino in Vegas and make a bet, I'm not saying to. But all right, so next, this is Kobe Bryant. We've mentioned his name several times, and like I said earlier today, it seems like his name keeps getting brought up, linked with the Packers, right? That's one to earmark. It doesn't mean the Packers are going to draft him, but to give you an example, some of the names that got linked to the Packers last year were Ray Davis out of Kentucky. It was Hall Jr., defensive lineman out of Ohio State. You had Marshawn Nealon, edge defender out of Western Michigan. Austin Booker, edge defender out of Kansas. And this is a Kansas player here, ironically, right? Tyron Hopper, linebacker, right, out of Missouri. And then Katan Oladapo, safety out of Oregon State. So, exactly, Tim. So there were 6 players last year that were like heavily linked to the Packers, and we drafted 2 of those. So when these names get mentioned, I don't want to say roll my eyes, but I didn't put a lot of stock in it. I think there's something to it. You really got to pay attention, because once you start to check all those boxes and you end up with 6, 7, 8 guys, Kobe may not be one of those dudes at the end, but we go through a process of like 3 or 4 qualifications that really links them to the Packers. Size, RAS, stuff like that, along with the visits, all that different stuff. So that's right, Prince. That is a funky baseline. So anyway, Kobe Bryant on our big board here, just to read it off to you guys, he's sitting in the 180 spot. So he's sitting at 180th. He's 142nd on the consensus big board. He's 220 on the PFF big board. And he was the 59th highest graded corner in college football last year. He will be at the East-West Shrine game. So, Tim, we've talked about Kobe a lot, man. Kobe Bryant keeps popping up here. Easton Butler saying that the Packers met with Kansas cornerback Kobe Bryant at the Shrine Bowl per Pack Weekly Pod.
Where is he on our board again?
Again, he is at the 180 spot currently.
Okay, so probably a 3rd round pick.
I would say so. Yeah, I think 3rd's pretty safe. Where are we? What pick would that be? Let's look at this real quick, kind of see where we'd have to take him. Let's change that banner. There you go. Appreciate it. So our 3rd round pick would be in what spot, Tim? I'm going to try to.
I believe it's 84. I think 87. Okay, 87, and then 122 in the 4th. So 3rd or 4th round for Kobe.
There you go, Kobe. So, yeah, just a name to keep an eye on. Again, Jacob, you got anything to add to Kobe Bryant here, man? The football player Kobe Bryant, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I love the name, love the prospect in theory. I know wasn't there another quarterback opposite him? He had another unique type of name. It was like Mosby or something around those lines. I don't know, man. Like I talked about earlier this morning, I just feel like that this draft is lacking a few of the blue chip kind of guys. It's like, this dude's good kind of guy. And it's a lot of the tweener types where it's like, maybe, if he has a good coach or if the system's right, and maybe the PFF grades, we've all kind of chuckled at PFF grades throughout the years, and people, that's not the all encompassing. Yeah, we get that. But if you actually take a step back and look at what has happened through people that have been drafted and then compare them to those college grades, there is correlation. I know there is. There 100% is. And, if that's one of the best, scouted players, I would totally love a Kobe Bryant. I don't know what round I'm ready to pick him in. Right. I don't have any idea. You could tell me 7th, you could tell me 2nd. I'd be like, okay. But right now it's just there's so much smoke and I don't see enough fire for any of these guys. It's very early. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I think, we've now been doing this podcast for a number of years. So we're kind of like, we're in our off-season groove, but I wonder if we're doing it too quickly. And if we're starting to take, a lot of these guys and put them on the board. What I think is great is that you guys behind the scenes, Emilio is doing an amazing job. I've been missing some episodes, but I'm watching what he's done. I'm listening to him when I'm not here. Dude is really putting in some work, and the way that Clayton and him and Tim, everybody has combined we've learned from our mistakes from previous years of like, hey, we misjudged a guy because he was bad this year, but he was really freaking good last year, like his top 10, or maybe he had a coaching change, or the quarterback changed, or the DC changed. We're now trying to put that into the algorithm that we have here. And I think that, honestly, I don't want to toot our own horns, but you guys have created arguably one of the most, I'd say, foolproof, probably the best of all time draft boards on the league. And I really do think so. Watch what we did last year. Try to lock it up. You know what I mean? Like, look at it. They performed very well.
Yeah, it's just here's the thing. We always put the disclaimer out this time of the year that it's early. It's extremely early still, right? The board is going to change as we go along. And this is, I think you're right, Jacob, in saying it seems a little early with putting information out. It is. I usually wait till my board is almost finished before I share it. But this year I thought, why not include everyone in kind of the process, So that's why we did it this way this year. So yeah. And again, it's something that takes a lot of different things into account, a lot of things into consideration. It's not my personal opinion of a prospect. It's not Emilio's. It's not Tim's. It's not Jacob. It's simply taking information that we trust, that we think, hey, this is the most valuable football information we have our hands on, and that's how we're going to determine how good a player is, as opposed to me watching the tape and go, boy, I really like this guy. All right, let's pump him up 20 spots. Right?
Eric disagrees with you, though. He has a theory. He says, why does Emilio's board have a bunch of Mexican soccer players on it? I don't know, Emilio.
I think
Eric,
we know the answer to that.
Come on.
We all know the answer to that. So pull that super chat up for me real quick, fellas. He asked a question about 3-Tech, right? I think it was Godsmack. Read that for me real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Godsmack AR69 says, Clayton, internet sites do a horrible job of explaining what a 3-Tech is, and it's bugging the hell out of me. Can you explain what a 3-Tech is and compare it maybe to a 1-Tech? I added that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you guys can see this image right here, right?
Yep.
Okay, so when you say 3-Tech, when you say 2-Tech, 1-Tech, 6-Tech, wide 9, all that stuff, you're describing these guys right here, where the defensive linemen are lining up. It's how the defensive coaches and how even sometimes the offensive coaches, but mainly the defensive coaches, how they describe where they want a player to line up, okay? So think of it. This is the easy way to think about it. Even numbers are directly over top of an offensive lineman. So if you're directly over top of the center, like this nose tackle is, that's called a 0-Tech. All right. Over this guy, the guards, whether it's left or right, that's considered a 2-Tech. Over top of the tackles, meaning straight up, head up on the tackles, that's called a 4-Tech. Okay. So 0 for your center, right? 0, 2, and then there's 4. All right. So when we say 3-Tech, a 3-Tech, and I'll do it in blue here. Okay. A 3-Tech is when you split the guard and the tackle. So there's odd numbers in between. So in between the guard and the center, that's a 1-Tech. Okay. In between the guard and the tackle, that's a 3-Tech. So in this particular image right here, this guy right here is playing 3-Tech. Okay. That's what 3-Tech means. And the reason it's so important is it's kind of hard to pretend this guy isn't even on the picture right here, okay? I'm going to wide him out, right? Blue him out, rather. He's not even on the field. This is typically what a defensive line looks like, right? You got 4 down linemen, whether you're in nickel or you're in a base 4-3. In a 34, it's different. So in this situation right here, the reason it's important to have a good 3-Tech, most of the time when you're in a 4-man front, this dude, pretend he ain't here, and let's pretend that he's lined up actually, let's say right here. Okay. In this case, this would be called an under formation. You're playing under the set. Okay. You got a 1-Tech on the strong side, and then you got a 3-Tech on the weak side. That's called playing under the strong side or under the tight end, depending on how you want to look at it. Okay. So that 3-Tech, the reason it's important is because this guy right here, that's not actually on the pitch or playing 1-Tech, he's probably going to occupy this double team right here. So you're freeing up a guy here to go one-on-one with the guard, because this wide 9 out here, which would be a 9-Tech, right? Meaning over top the tackle be a 4, outside shoulder be a 5, right? And then it'd be a 7 and then a 9, okay? That 9-Tech, unless this running back chips, what you're going to have here is a single block for the 3-Tech and a single block for the 9, okay? So that's why it's important to have a dominant 3-Tech. Now, typically what you want to do is you'll have the 3-Tech on one side, and your best defensive lineman will be the 3-Tech, and on the opposite side, the wide 9 will be your best edge pass rusher. Think right here, Rashawn. I can't write it out with my cursor here. Rashawn Gary, Scary Gary, right? Not Casey, Gary. Okay,
Giuffre?
Not Giuffre either. He's not Italian, right? So Gary on that side, and what you would like to see is Kenny Clark here, Rashawn Gary there, right? Now, the problem is Kenny Clark is the one who's not been performing. Rashawn Gary led the team in sacks, led the team in pressures, led the team in run stops on the defensive line, right? The one that struggled was Kenny. Well, Kenny played a lot of 1-Tech this year. So who was your 3-Tech? When he was healthy, it was Devontae Wyatt, a pretty good pass rusher, right? The problem is he's not that good at playing the run. That's his weak spot. So when I say you want a true 3-tech, I mean a 3-tech that can play the run and the pass. Okay.
What do you think about this? Is that what Ramfall's saying? Jalen Carter just showed how important a real 3-tech is.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Exactly what we're talking about. And they've got solid edge rushers too. And the reason that's important to have both is because imagine you just got a solid 3-tech. Guess what's going to happen? Pretend this guy isn't here again, right? You're going to bend the protection. You'll have this guy come up and chip, and bang, you got a double team on that 3-tech, right? Well, your tackle can handle a mediocre edge defender. Your tackle can handle a mediocre edge defender. This guard can handle this guy, and you could probably even bend this center inside in case Jalen Carter comes to this side, right? So what you're doing is you're getting two hats on Jalen Carter or that dominant 3-tech, and he's taken care of, no problem. But whenever you got a dominant wide 9, a dominant edge, and you got a dominant 3-tech, now you got to think about keeping 6 in for the protection, okay? That means this guy's got to stay in and help block, or else you don't have enough hats to take care of 2 dominant defensive linemen or pass rushers in a wide 9 edge, a 7, a 5, whatever he's playing, but specifically that 3-tech. Now, the reason that you guys see a lot of people on Twitter and Packer fans are going, we need an edge defender, we don't need a defensive lineman. You ask any quarterback and any offensive coordinator, any offensive guru, which would you rather have protected? You got a free runner. Would you rather let the 3-tech free run the quarterback or the wide 9? They're going to say 100% of the time let the wide 9 because he can manipulate the pocket, step up and out. He can jab up and then bounce back and give his guy time to make the block, right? But that 3-tech, boy, if you don't got enough hats on him, he's going to push that pocket right back into your quarterback. You don't believe me? Go watch the second half of that Packers-Eagles game. So
that's why you tell your guys, just hold them. We'll take the holding penalty rather than the dead quarterback, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully that explained the question for that super chat. Again, who was that had the super chat up there? Was it Godsmack? Godsmack, yes. Hopefully that explained it to you, man. Thank you for the super chat. That's what we're talking about, though, when we talk about 3-tech. Okay, that's it. It's really simple. Once you just the main thing you want to understand is 0, 2, 4. The even numbers are straight up on the offensive line. Now, here's where it gets tricky, though, and I wouldn't even worry about this. Just treat it as evens and odds. These defensive coordinators and these offensive coordinators, especially offensive line coach, they take this very serious. This looks like it should be just a 4-tech, right? No, he's on the inside shoulder. You see that slight shade, this guy's slight shade to the inside shoulder of this tackle? They would call that a 4-eye. That's the only difference, okay? So what you've technically got is if we were going from the right tackle in, you'd have a 4-tech, a 4-eye, a 3, right? Then you would have a 2, a 2-eye, a 1, and then what they call shade, which would be an OI, but it's easier just to say shade. It means you're playing the inside shoulder. So from the defense's perspective, you'd say shade left or shade right. That's talking about shading the guard, and everything's the same on this side of the offensive line as well. I love the New Heights podcast there with the Kelsey brothers. Jason Kelsey explained this one time, and he was cracking me up. He said, you know what bothers me? He said, I've been playing this game a long time. We call it a 3-tech, right? Or we call it, you got a 2-tech, a 4-tech, and we go 2-eye. Why is there not an O? Why don't we even care about the outside shoulder? Because they just consider it an odd, right? Because it's typically in the middle. If you've got somebody in the middle, you would call that a 3-tech. If you have somebody here, you'd still call it a 3-tech, and that pissed him off. I don't know why, but I was just going, it's a good question there, Jason.
God. Yeah. Can I ask one real quick? And we got a great, there we go. Godsmack. Right before that, just we talked about how the 3 in the eye, the Philly did back-to-back draft cycles where they went with the big man, Jalen Carter. Who's the other one that was massive, unbelievable man who he made a play? I'm sorry,
Jordan Davis.
Absolutely. And you watch that guy take freaking the quarterback down like with a 15-yard sack because he was so agile. He was so good. And when you have those type of unbelievable players in together, again, I go back to like the Williams Wall or those crazy types of defenses. We don't even talk about the edge rushers. The fact that those 2 interior defenders, like you talked about, they can take them. The quarterback can spin around, do whatever he wants. If he pushes it back inside, he's not going to get past those guys. It's just not going to happen. It's now crazy.
Pretend for a second this guy in the middle isn't there again, okay? And you just got a 4-man front. what you just said with Jordan Davis. Imagine this is Jalen Carter. You got to think about double teaming him. And your nose tackle, if you guys remember, go back and look at the combine, look at the measurables of Jordan Davis. You remember it, Tim? He had like the fastest 40 time of all defensive tackles, and his RAS and size was like damn near. I think it was a 10, actually. I think he finished with it was like a 9.9 or a 10. So imagine trying to block both of those guys up front. That's what the Eagles have been doing for so long. Every year they'll draft an interior defensive lineman early in the draft because they're going, again, Michael Lombardi 101. Everybody thinks they got a 3-tech, and there's very few teams in the league that truly have a 3-tech. They've got 2 that can play 3-tech. So when you get both those guys on the field together and you got effective edge rushers, I'm telling you, that's why I'm saying if we focus on 3-tech, let's get that right. If you've got to take 2 draft picks early, Tim, if you go first and second round, right? I don't care. But take multiple swings and get your 3-tech. Well, what if Wyatt ends up being a great 3-tech? Well, congratulations. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line now.
Yep.
That's a horrible problem to have, isn't it? So
yeah, I'm not going to complain about being stacked in the trenches. That's one of the reasons why we haven't gotten over the hump. So let's load up on that talent. I've said it before. I'll say it again. O-line and defensive line, honestly.
Yeah. And here's the thing, too. The Kansas City Chiefs, right? Look at the Chiefs and look at the Eagles right now. Outside of the officiating helping them, what's the strength of their team? Who's the Kansas City Chiefs' best defensive player? It's Chris Jones, a dominant 3-tech. Who's the Philadelphia Eagles' best defensive player, arguably? It's Jalen Carter, a dominant 3-tech. Flip it over on the offensive side of the ball. They were so good for so long in the tush push, right? It sounds like they've got another good center, and I don't know who he is right off the bat. But look at what Jason Kelce did for so long. That's why they competed for a Super Bowl again. They had a solid center, and what does the Kansas City Chiefs have? The best center in the game in Creed Humphrey, the name that we all hate to mention. So, Godsmack AR69 with the Super Chase says, thank you for explaining that so well, Clayton. I guess I have to go to fellow Packers fans if I want to learn about football. Good job. Not too shabby for a fellow redneck. Appreciate it, guys. Sorry, I wish we could change the accent. That's probably the thing that throws everybody off when we try to explain this. But it's what Mama gave me. It's what we got to work with, man. Blame her, not me, okay? So, appreciate the Super Chat there, bub. But I'm glad that question came up. I love talking that stuff. I remember when I first launched the podcast, I told Ryan, I remember messaging Ryan the first time I got an email question about X's and O's. And I went, oh, man, I wasn't going to dive into it because I don't think that's what people want to hear most of the time. But this person asked the X's and O's question. I'm like, this is what I'm most excited about in the game. It's just, it doesn't make for great sports talk, in my opinion, for some people. I can hear people talk about it all the time, though, because there's always so much to learn. And I'm telling you, as soon as you learn something, you're going to look up the next year. And I don't want to say it's obsolete, but the game changes so often. You may be thinking, I'm never going to get caught up. That's BS. Start right now. Next year, something's going to happen. Like the pistol this year. We called it, did we not, Tim, this offseason? Yep. Because we studied the trends in the offseason. There was 2 trends that popped up. 3 deep safety looks that took over college football a little bit. And then you had the pistol set with Sean McVay brung back and was making it popular again. What did we do in Green Bay this year? Broke out the pistol a ton. It's a copycat league. It is. That's how the jet sweeps came about. Now everybody's catching on to the jet sweeps, so it's starting to slow down because everybody's figuring it out, and you'll end up switching it up. Deadfish says, TJ Slaton is our Jordan Davis. We have to make sure we have that big player. TJ is a free agent. Grant Williams, Collins, Harmons, and Walker are players in this draft that are big D tackles. Yeah, I'm on board with TJ Slaton. We talked about this a few weeks ago. TJ Slaton was arguably our most effective interior defensive lineman. I personally think he played better than Devontae Wyatt. The problem is Devontae Wyatt was on the field a lot more than him. So I would like to see TJ Slaton. If he goes to test the market, you can get him back for $3 or $4 million per. Don't be surprised if TJ Slaton goes out there and gets $5 million per year because I think he played that well, and I think it's that important. Not just a run either. We're talking about in the past too. Had over an 8% pressure rate. And for him playing 1-tech predominantly when he's in the game, that's huge. Kenny played 1-tech a lot this year, and his was at 6%. So TJ Slaton played better than Kenny. I think the answer is you got to take snaps away from Kenny, and we got to try something new in the middle. But again, to me, the biggest hole that we have on this team right now, or not the biggest hole, but the reason we lost to the Eagles was because we weren't deep enough in our offensive line. That's really what it comes down to. So played a lot of teams this year, Tim. Jacob, that didn't matter, right? We still got the dub because they weren't built that strong in the trenches. But when you play these big playoff teams that have the trenches figured out, they're going to expose your thin offensive line. All it takes is one injury, and there was only one person in the United States that was cheering on that offensive lineman there in Travis Glover, and you know his name. It rhymes with Shamilio, okay? So,
we're going to give him some.
Perfectly said, Brett. All right, let's move on to the next prospect that Easton Butler had mentioned. And we'll try to hit these rapid fire. We're just going to keep it to 40 minutes tonight, guys, so we'll be wrapping up fairly soon. It says Easton Butler, again, give him a follow, at Easton__Butler. The Packers met with Louisville cornerback Corey Thornton at the Shrine Bowl. We just talked about them, didn't we? So we already kind of broke him down. So that's another name that keeps getting mentioned with the Packers. The next one, I believe we had another one. Here we go. Here we got a defensive tackle, guys. Packers met with Georgia defensive tackle Nazir Stackhouse at the Shrine Bowl per at Pack Weekly Pod. So he plays for Georgia. Let me go look up his information real quick on our board. You guys got anything on Nazir Stackhouse at all?
Yeah, he's my favorite my favorite last pick of the draft. He's obviously a Georgia guy, which I don't know if you know this, but Ted, Mr. Brian likes those a little bit. He likes Georgia players. So I, you know, and if you look at his stats, he's one of those guys where it's like, or his grades, I should say. He fits the part. It's just, you know, whether or not he's going to be a difference maker. You know, I don't want to throw shade on any of our players or any kind of stuff, but it's like, you know, we're looking at some of the positional players that the Eagles drafted, and a lot of them are, you know, D linemen, interior D linemen, and theirs seem to be working out great. Ours seem to be working out sporadically, and in certain situations, like, you know, Devontae Wyatt and other Georgia first rounders that I don't want to mention, they're still good. You know, it's just, I don't know. There's something has to change after a certain amount of times. You know, the old what is it? If you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, that's the definition of crazy. I believe that's Albert Einstein's or one of those philosophicers. I don't think that's the actual definition of crazy, but here, I think this could break the mold. Nazir Stackhouse at the Shrine Bowl. Do you have his stats by chance, or his PFF grades? The guy looks he's got a little hope in his, especially because I believe he peaked a little bit earlier in his career, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, last year, if I remember correctly, Tim, we talked about him a little bit last year. Going into this last college football season, he was actually pretty high. I want to say he was a top 100 prospect. Now, he's dropped since then. The consensus big board has him in the 144 spot. All right. We have him in the 237 spot is where we've got him at. He's 255 on the PFF big board, but in terms of his grade, starting in 2022, he was the 184th highest graded defensive lineman. In 23, he dropped to 270. And then in 24, he jumped to 124. So he had his best year this year. But I think that inconsistency is probably what's hurting him. It just feels like another player, Tim, that like he peaked last year maybe. Like people really had their eyes on him as a dude that might break into that top 100 of prospects. And that's probably why Goody's wanting to take a peek at him, because other teams are going to see him as less valuable. So this might be somebody you could get later in the draft, because between 144 and 255 from the consensus big board to the PFF big board, let's just call it 200, okay? Let's say he's the 200th best prospect. Well, that means we might be able to get him with, what, a 6th-round pick, right? So what do you think, Tim?
Thick.
Definitely a big one. His name's not Deion Walker, so I don't have.
I knew. Oh my god!
As long as we're talking about that range, but no, we did. We talked about him last year, and then you know, looking at my short list, yeah, he's on my list with Deion Walker, and we also talked about Derek Harmon out of Oregon as well as kind of being in that range. So, you know, here 6'3", 320, like Deadfish is saying, he's a big guy. He's definitely thick.
Yes,
so that's what we're looking for there. Hopefully, and you know, I don't know, has he played 3-tech? Do we have his PFF breakdown if we saw him in the 3-tech at all.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he played 3-tech predominantly and maybe played a little bit of 1-tech. I can't say that for sure.
He looks like he's built like a 3-tech. Yeah, well, here you go. This is really interesting. This is probably why they're seeing him a little more valuable. His entire career, I'm gonna start in 2022 and then give you 2023 and 2024. Okay, B gap, which is 3-tech, 281 snaps. That same year, 189 snaps in the A gap. In 2023, 208 snaps in the 3-tech, 194 in the 1-tech. And then this year, 258 snaps in the 3-tech, 242 in the 1-tech. So, and his PFF grade 73, 70, and 75. His run defense grade 83.1. His pass rush grade's below the median line this year. But yeah, he is a dude that can play both A and B gap in a 4-3. Probably a little too, I don't want to say too small, but he doesn't fit kind of that traditional nose tackle. You want to play zero or shade in a 34 front. But he's got some versatility to him there for sure. So that is Nazir Stackhouse.
Eric's opinion is there's no more Georgia players unless Philly drafts them and then gives them to us.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, and that maybe that's why Matt LaFleur is looking for a new D-line coach, right, Tim? Like you see some of these other teams are better at developing these guys, and we're struggling. So let's get somebody in here who can develop this talent that we're drafting,
That's a great point. We have talent in the building. If we're not getting the best out of them, it might be time to change your approach. I think it's a great point.
Yeah. Again, like Jacob was saying, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, right? Chris N, speaking of that, says the refs should be training 40-plus hours a week in the offseason. I completely agree, Chris. I don't know what the hell's going on in the offseason, but it's just not good enough. But this game, I'll tell you what, you got to tip your cap to Buffalo because they're fighting through the adversity. It's 21-16 right now with 7 minutes left in the third quarter. Buffalo's got the ball, and they are driving. They're at roughly the 35-yard line of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Can I just make a suggestion? I mean, why wouldn't if you're good enough to coach, quote unquote, at the NFL level, and you're deciding whether or not like multi-millions of dollars and let alone fan bases and all this kind of stuff, like he just said, okay, so you got what, like 6 months out of your year? So what are you doing with the other 6 months? Either you're taking courses or you're going through like an NFL, training thing where you're known where to flag things or to get it reviewed, or maybe you're coaching the college football championship or the UFL or doing something. You don't get to sit there and only work 16, 17 days out of the week and be really bad at your job. You know what I mean? Like if I could work 17, if you showed me a contract and like, bro, I'm going to give you millions. You got to be there 17 days out of the year and you only have to do kind of good. I would kill that job. I'd be so good. I'd be CEO. I would be the guy. I would walk. Oh my God, I'd be so good at that job. But like, imagine that. That's the standard we hold them to. That's the standard. And after that, even if I came in and I pooped all over the desks and I'm like, I pooped all over the desk today, guys. See you later next year. You'd be like, all right, we'll see you next year. Guys, clean up the poop. Like that's what we do.
Pat you on the butt and you poop in my hand. So
exactly, Matt. Don't make me poop in your hand. And if I do, I expect that I'm going to have to clean it up, not the refs. What are we doing?
Exactly. Yeah, so we had a question here about the defensive line coach. I think it was Coach Lynn. And again, thank you so much, Chris N, for the super chat. Coach Lynn says, speaking of D-line coach, question mark. I haven't heard of a hire yet. I know the last we heard Casey Rogers was joining the Lions, I believe it was, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they end this coaching search here, Tim, and they go, you know what, let's just promote Vince Ogabasi to the primary defensive line coach. The problem I have with that personally, I want an edge specialist, right? Because Ogabasi's that big body 1-3 tech kind of. That was the player he was both in college, and I think he made it to the pros with the Colts for a little bit. I want that dude that's a specialist on the edge, right? And I'm going to throw a name out here, and this is probably silly. I'm sure it's silly. But you guys remember when we brung in our boy Dom Capers to take over as the DC, and he completely revamped that defense, right?
Yep.
And we drafted this young edge defender, and we said, man, we need somebody to coach him up. And they brought in Kevin Green from the Pittsburgh Steelers to coach up Clay Matthews. I would be over the moon if they said, "Why don't we see if we can get Clay Matthews in?"
Here's a guy.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
We're not saying turn it loose with the whole defensive line and you got all this responsibility. It's just, hey, Clay, Coach O is going to take over the defensive line here. Why don't you work with the edge defenders for us? I think it'd be awesome fit. But what the hell do I know, right? 2-0 for this, said Joe Barry.
Don't put that name in my mouth right there.
Oh, man, unbelievable. Look, Buffalo Bills about to punch it in here, boys. We're going to get a good finish. I promise you that. So we'll wrap up here shortly so everybody can go watch the game. Let's go on to the next one here. Let's go rapid fire. Packers met with, this is according to Easton Butler again, Packers met with UCLA linebacker Kane Medrano at the Shrine Bowl per at Pack Weekly Pod. So let me see if I can find Medrano. Anybody got any information on him there? Linebacker out of UCLA. Looks a little thin to me.
I was just going to say he looks undersized. If that's a picture
like
of him.
Cornerback, dude.
Yeah, is he a safety or a linebacker?
They're saying linebacker. Let's take a look here, though. Let's see Medrano and see if we got him on our.
He reminds me of that unfortunate gentleman that we signed. That was we signed him as like a 6th or 7th round draft pick, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, he is wearing a Packers jersey when he was a kid. It's gonna be amazing." It was when we talked about maybe that like
Carpenter, what?
Tyreek Carpenter, when it was that Spur slash the whatever the name was at the time for Joe Barry's defense. We're like, ooh, and guys, just let's all temper our expectations here. Coach Len says the best. He goes, Oladapo looks even better than he does, and that's true.
It does.
That's true.
I don't. There it is, right on time. We don't have him on the big board. So Emilio, when you hear this, sir, let's add him to the board. I can jump in there and do it too. I'm looking on the consensus big board as well. Linebacker Kane Medrano. He's out of UCLA, right? Let me just look for the logo. Maybe I won't pass over him. He's not in the stack backer list. All right. No, there he is. Here he is. Okay, this is why. He's going to be at the East-West Shrine game. He's obviously down there. He's 445th on the consensus big board. He peaked at 187, though. So I'm wondering there might be an injury or something. That's pretty wild, right? Let's see if he's on the PFF big board real quick on linebackers. And I was going to try to get a size here. They don't show it on that one, so maybe they'll have it on the PFF big board. Kyle Medrano. He's not even on the PFF big board. So. You okay over, Jacob?
Yeah, it's just his typical Eric Sutherland check-in.
All right. Well,
you guys check out linebacker Richard Shrivels from Coldwater University.
Watch him be on there.
He predominantly was in the pool.
It's shrinkage. All right, so we don't have anything on Medrano other than he's probably going to be an undrafted free agent. That's another thing that Ted Thompson used to do a lot. He would say he'd go out and use his top 30 visits. You guys remember, on players that weren't even going to be drafted. So he'd have kind of a leg up on everyone else, a little more information on these undrafted free agents. And you kind of roll your eyes and think, is that really that important? Does Tramon Williams ring a bell? Right. Yeah. People like that. Sam Shields, if I remember correctly, played dominant for a while. So anyway, we don't have much on him. Next, Kenneth Grant. This one will get you excited, though, right? The big boy Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Packers met with him at the Shrine Bowl. And you guys, this should be fairly easy to find because he is towards the top. There's no doubt about that on our board. His teammate, Mason Graham, is the top prospect on our board as it sits right now. And then Kenneth Grant is sitting in the 15 spot. All right. He's on the consensus big board at 21, which is right there close to where the Packers, he may fall on the Packers' lap at 23. He's number 18 on the PFF big board. He was the 29th highest graded defensive lineman in 24. He was the 48th in 23. And we don't have a complete grade on him yet for 22. So that feels like one of the players that Goot's looking at like, hey, if he's on the board when we pick there, it looks like everything lines up. Let's make sure he's the right guy, right? So what do you guys think about Kenneth Grant? I'd be totally okay with that because according to our board, he is the second best interior defensive lineman on our board.
Yeah, I mean, two big boys from that Michigan D line that are on the board. I'd love to take Kenneth Grant. if we could. But I don't know. Do we really want to? We'd probably have to move up, and I don't know if they're going to be that aggressive.
But isn't it that age-old question that we talked about, Tim, years before? Is it which D tackle dictates whether or not the other D tackle is good? You know what I mean? Yeah. Talking about with the Georgia boys, but guess what? They both turned out to be pretty darn good. All right.
Yeah.
So
if we go, let's do this. I'm not gonna put it on the screen, but let's go to Mason Graham and let's talk about where he played. He played predominantly the B gap. Okay, so he was a 3-tech. He was Michigan's 3-tech. Let's see if they played a double 3. They did. They played a double 3. However, Kenneth Grant played 368 snaps as the 3-tech in the B gap. He also played 170 in the A gap. So it sounds like they played a lot of split fronts where the two defensive tackles were outside of the 1-tech the most of the time. However, he's the one of the two that can play the 1-tech. Now, again, if Kenny Clark's not going to be the long-term future and they think Devontae Wyatt is, then maybe they're looking at it from let's get a versatile 1-tech in here, right, that we can kick around a 3-tech when we need to. You know what I'm saying? It feels like there's still a chance, Tim. I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a long way to say this, but it feels like there's still a chance they think Devontae Wyatt is the dude. And Goody said that, right, his last presser.
Can someone just tell me what the hell's wrong with his legs in this picture? Like that's not making me feel good. Like what's going on with his legs?
They were my magic shoes.
I was just gonna say,
kind of look like that.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
They look like. I say look like Jacob walking out of the Oval Office at midnight. You know what I mean? It's been a rough night there dancing. You know, rusty cheeks over there. It happens. So there you go. Yeah, Grant.
And from that day forth, I was running.
Forrest Gump has entered the show. That's how
Too old for this says, thank you, Tim. I'm glad I wasn't alone. Too old for this was like, somebody come look at this.
You know what, the hell with it. Take him off the board. Get him off the board. We don't like the way his knees look. All right.
His angles are off. His angles. That's a Theo Vaughn. Bro, your angles is done, bro.
No, he is hilarious, man. When he was talking, I can't think of the guy. He was the other comedian, the black comedian that's in all the. Was it Drizzy?
Yeah.
Anyway, he said he bought a black Cat Williams doll or whatever.
Y'all seen that video? I've seen that. The lawn ornament.
It was the big nutcracker, and he was like, "That's a nutcracker." He went, "What are you talking about? That's a Cat Williams." God, Theo is just. Oh, he's unbelievable. Oh. Anyway, all right, next. Tyler Barron, edge defender out of Miami, is another one that Easton Butler mentions here. Let's see if we can find him on the big board real quick. Tyler Barron. God, is he not on the board either? Look at this, boys. We're hitting a pocket of guys. See, these are the people we got to add. So he is not on our board. I need to be writing these down. Emilio ain't going to listen to this crappy show, and I don't blame him. Tyler Barron. Write him down. Who was the other one? Do you guys remember? It was the skinny chick. What was his name?
Oh, the linebacker?
Yeah. Kane. There we go.
There he is.
Kane Medrano.
All right, we're going to make sure those get added. Anybody the Packers meet with, we're going to make sure on the board. I don't care if they're ranked 600. We're going to make sure we got some kind of grade for them. But anyway, back to Tyler Barron. Let's see what the consensus big board has for him. He's an edge defender, correct? That's what they're showing there. So Tyler Barron, and he is out of Miami. He's sitting in the 135 spot, and he peaked at 72. So Tyler Barron is someone that's right around the 135 spot on the big board. And then when it goes to the PFF board, Tyler Barron, where are you at, sir? Oh, boy. I think he's way down here. Here we go. Actually, he's in the 112 spot. All right. 6'5", 260. So he's got that long frame, right? That guy that could probably bend off the edge. PFF grades 73, 78, and 76. Redshirt senior, he's 23 years old.
Let's go.
But yeah, that's a dude to keep an eye on there, boys. Tim, that kind of fits that mold of Jaden Reed, right? This year down a little bit, 73.7, but last year peaked 78.5. That might be hurting his stock a little bit. He plays outside the tackle, so a 5 to 9 tech. He played over the tackle 65 snaps, and he actually kicked into the B gap 13 snaps. He also played off the ball 11 snaps, so they disguised him a little bit. Probably had him stand up in that A gap and rush, right? But that's Tyler Barron. You got anything on him? Any thoughts on that, man? That might be one of those. Goody might be looking at edge defenders a little later, Tim.
I was going to say, depending on how free agency shakes up, right? We were talking about bringing in a couple veterans possibly to help, on that line. And I think if we're not going to do that, we got to look at the Tyler Barrons of the world and try and find that hidden value there in those mid to late tier rounds. And he could be a guy. And, Miami, that's a legit school. So if we probably pulled his numbers, he's probably played against some halfway decent competition. So you'd get a good barometer on where he's at. But it'll be fun to see him at the Shrine Bowl though, too.
Yeah, he is on our board too. I just found him. He's at the 149 spot. So the thing that's bringing him down the most is a combination of not the consensus big board, really. It's just PFF grades is the only thing that's bringing him down. So 229, 109, 155. So he was considered the 109th best edge defender in college football in 23. That was his best year. PFF, again, it's not everything. It's just another measurable there. So, Jacob, you got anything to add to Tyler Barron before we move on there?
No. You guys pretty much hit that up. That's good.
All right, here's the last one that they hit on, and we'll get ready to wrap up. Offensive lineman Tim McKay out of Yes, sir, NC State. Tim McKay. Let's see if we can find anything on him on our board real quick. McKaymOusc. All right, let's see. Tim McKay is in the 308 spot, but here's what's wild. His PFF grade in 24 had him as the 93rd best offensive lineman. So he must have kind of peaked this year. And if we go to the interior offensive lineman, he's ranked 295th on the PFF big board. However, here's his PFF grades starting in 22. 63, 57, and then jump to a 70. That sounds like an undrafted free agent, boys. So Goody's carrying on that Ted Thompson tradition, keeping an eye on those, right? So those undrafted free agents. As Prince in the chat points out, braces on both legs. Look like some of your coworkers out there at the Oval Office, Jacob, right?
That's terrible.
Hey, they bend it and snap like no one else, all right?
Here's the guy.
You talk about Linda like that. She's got a family to support.
Don't you talk about old Rusty's Hurts?
Don't you do it. Don't you do it, Jacob. I know where this is going.
She's a good lady, I tell you. I just went into old Norm Macdonald. I tell you,
Norm Macdonald would not last 10 minutes in today's culture. Oh my God. They would bury him somewhere, wouldn't they? Tim, what do you think, man? This is our first interior offensive lineman that we're getting a little bit of information on. Again, those braces on both knees, that doesn't look good, does it, sir?
I mean, I'm not as concerned as it looks on the surface. A lot of those guys, it's preventative. You think about those big tackles and stuff, like they're constantly getting low. That's a lot of weight. You're doing your kick step, you're shuffling. It's all in your feet. Great point, Prince in the chat here. His teammate there to the right has them on too. So I think a lot of guys nowadays, they wear those as a kind of a precautionary thing just to create some extra stability when you got all that meat on them bones. So
there's literally like a metal bar that'll stop their leg from going sideways, which is all together more crazy when their leg goes sideways. Imagine the impact. Like they got steel bars right there that are stopping that dude's leg from going a certain way. So when it is to the point where the players start calling him out and the cart comes out, something real bad happened. That is crazy.
Yeah, like Chris Sin says, linemen wear braces always. There's been a bunch of linemen that's done that. We're kind of cracking jokes, but I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. So he's a big old boy, though. I know that. Did we get a size on him by chance? 6'4", 312. So, yeah, he's a hoss, man.
Thick.
In terms of his snaps, he played predominantly – he started college football playing right tackle. This year, he kicked into right guard and had his best years. So, you may see even more improvement from Timothy McKay as he plays more right guard. So got a little bit of versatility there at tackle and guard. Played at Clemson, a 75.6 on the road at Clemson, and then on the road at UNC at a 72.6, Duke at home 72.3, Stanford at home 70.9. Didn't play a whole lot of talent, like Tennessee, probably the toughest team they played this year, University of Tennessee, and he had a 52.4. So, again, I think that's probably an undrafted free agent prospect there for old Goody. Anything else you guys want to hit on before we wrap up here, gents? I think we covered it all. I wanted to get in those Easton Butler tweets and just kind of talk about some of the players that the Packers seem to have their eye on.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I do like that last, idea of possibly snatching some O-line depth, undrafted free agent kind of approach. Maybe we can load up in some of these other positional groups of need, with our draft picks, and then let Goody cook and, get us some UDFAs in the building. We're no strangers to that.
Mm-hmm. Coach Lynn, we require our offensive linemen to wear braces all the time, practices and games. So that's awesome. Yeah. So good inside information from someone who's actually coaching these players. So that's huge.
My knee.
Prevent right there. And I'll tell you what else we're trying to prevent. AFAM says Eric Sutherland got a Dairy Queen cake for Eric Stokes' last game.
Jesus.
He has been the Eric Stokes hater. Part of me, you guys know that I'm not a big Eric Stokes fan, but part of me wants Eric Stokes to re-sign just to watch Eric Sutherland blow up. You know what I mean? Same way people were probably hoping that Darnell Savage got that fifth-year option so I would blow up, and it worked. My God. All right. Anything else, gents?
Go Bills.
Yes, sir. What's the score now? Let's look at it real quick before we get off here.
Buffalo 22, the rest 21.
I sincerely pray and hope to the Lord, baby, so sweet and so cuddly Jesus, that that just don't let us feed into our nonsense. Do not make the Chiefs and the Philly. That's just the worst fan bases. Nobody wants it. You called it. Don't let this happen, please.
And it's setting up just like every Chiefs game too. It's going to come down to Pat Mahomes at the end. He's going to go right down the field, and there's going to be 3 holds the entire drive, and they're not going to throw a flag. He's going to run around and make a play because he had 12 seconds to throw the ball because people are in headlocks on the offensive line. So that's the way it'll work. Drew D says, not going to lie, I love ice cream cakes. Mandy's favorite.
Yeah.
She sometimes I think she makes up birthdays in the family just so she can go buy ice cream cake.
Ice cream cake is the only way to go. I do not like regular cakes. Ugh, disgusting.
Jacob doesn't like regular cakes, really?
I don't like cookies. I don't like cakes. I don't like brownies. Ice cream cakes all the way. Let's go.
You hurt me, bro.
I heard you like brownies.
Don't you?
That's it. We're out here. Y'all have a good.
And we go.
Bye, guys.